Caro, you'll be pleased to know we start with your beloved Tigers, who had a remarkable win yesterday, as I mentioned. The story, though, is Brisbane in this game and the mounting challenges now and what's ahead of them to try and make something of their team.
And some interesting coaching conversations that you brought up last week and came up again earlier tonight. But it would be fair to say that Brisbane were completely shattered by yesterday's loss. And among their devastation was anger, and initial anger broke out, of course, after this incident early in the game involving Zach Bailey and Marlon Pickett. Now, there was a bump, there was a push. I know that Brisbane bosses were talking to the AFL throughout the day. Zach Bailey went to hospital. He was coughing up blood. He was very, very concerned. Happily, the news is a lot better today, and he's flown home. And there's Mitch Robinson giving yet another finger to the crowd, yet again to the Richmond cheer squad. And that's Mitch Robinson's tweet later. Love the comments from the Tiger Army, always humble in victory. Well, that was earlier in the game. In fact, I think it was in the second quarter. It wasn't after he missed that crucial goal, Matthew, but he's received a please explain, and Brisbane have. I think he's going to have to explain himself, but I don't think there'll be a fine. But I think Marlon Pickett, there's been no citing from the match review officer. I think the incident was looked at and looked at and looked at again.
I think there's a news tonight. Yeah, so it's...
Yeah, but there's been no...
It's symbolic of it hasn't Richmond, how it got into their heads and some of the issues that...
Well, just one quick one on Marlon Pickett, who has the ability to seriously hurt players because he's a tough player. I think there will be words delivered to him to Richmond about his tactics, but there was a lot of anger. I think Brisbane have calmed down today.
Yeah, I've watched that a couple of times. I didn't see too much wrong with that one. The one on Robinson later on, the free kick where he got him high and Mitch Robinson missed that goal, was more aggressive than that. But that one there, I'm not sure what they're too upset about.
Well, Michael Christian couldn't find anything either, but there was a lot of agitation from the Brisbane camp.
And with themselves too, they were 42 points up in the game of footy. The MCG was going to be the big story going in. Their finals record is the other thing now that looms large over there. They're 1 win and 5 losses in this era, and the double chance looking like it's really against them now. This is what Chris Fagan had to say, already a little bit agitated in the lead up to this game.
I just find all this stuff, like I understand it's about setting up the story. So the story on Monday will be, if the Lions win, you can win the flag because you won at the MCG. And if we lose, you can't win the flag because you can't win at the MCG. That's how to roll, and we all understand that.
And he's probably right. And here he is on the interchange bench late in the game, or certainly in the back half of the game. And the reason I think your coach from the interchange bench is to calm everyone down, which he's trying to do there. But if I'm a player, I'm more anxious watching my coach behave like that. And clearly, Lordo, the pressure is getting to him. And he's right. You did lose at the MCG, and now we will say you can't win the grand final for obvious reasons, I think.
Well, now I think losing the top 4 spot currently, they can still get back there. By losing that, they've now got to come to the G at some point. They may have to beat Melbourne and Geelong at the MCG in the finals, and you just can't see that happening with the way they're performing.
And it builds the pressure, doesn't it? If it does become 1 and 6 or...
So what happens, Hutchie? I mean, you raised it last week about...
Craig brought up about the prospect of Alistair Clarkson.
So what does he have to do to save his job?
Can we have a listen to Chris Fagan, who was actually asked about what you said last week on AFL 360 tonight?
Are you unconditionally committed to coaching the Lions next year?
Yes, Jared, sorry. I am. I've got a contract for next year, and hopefully the team can continue to do well, and that the club is keen to keep me for a while longer.
So you're not making any private plans to hand the job over to an old colleague?
Well, it's not my job to hand over in the first place, so no is the firm answer to that question.
Well, clearly he's not going to be handing it over, and Brisbane emphatically deny that they have had any conversations, external, internal, contacts to Brisbane, connections with Brisbane, with anyone connected to Alistair Clarkson. The other flabbergasting thing to me, if this were to have any legs, Craig, is that they're both managed by the same person. And I just can't see Alistair Clarkson moving in on his old footy manager's job. I know that, the offers in front of him aren't the dream offers in North Melbourne and GWS. We'll talk about that later, but I would be staggered if Brisbane did that.
So he's done a magnificent job in getting Brisbane relevant and in contention. The question now is, does he have it in him to get them to the next level and be a premiership contender? What do you want to see over this final series next year, however long this goes for?
Well, it's 1 and 6.
What's 1 and 5?
In finals, and you probably need to make the prelim final this year, you would think. But I'm with Caro. I think even still they would go with him next year. And I think your suggestion last week was him working underneath Alistair Clarkson. I don't think that would be the case. Do you stand by that?
No, I asked a question on whether they were at the point of considering...
Craig, you wouldn't have brought it up if you hadn't heard scuttlebutt. Well, not scuttlebutt, you'd heard talk. You must have heard something.
The pressure in this final series will be on Chris Fagan and probably Chris Scott because of...
Do you think Clarkson will wait and see how the finals eventuate?
No, not now. But it's a long way away, a month, isn't it?
Unless they make... I think they have to make a grand final this year, Cornsey. They've been banging on the door for years.
Brisbane have to make a grand final.
For it to be a successful year for them.
But not for Chris Fagan to keep his job.
No, not to keep his job. But if they don't make the grand final, I think maybe then if Chris needs to bolster his coaching group to support him, because they are falling short in big games time and time again.
And the question is, can you trust what they've got? So you look at Danaher, and I know Hipwood's probably a hard mark because he's on the way back, but they are, you know, particularly, this is the first half of the second half. So the second half in particular, supply dried up admittedly, but Joe does not seem to be the player they need him to be or took him to be with a premium on him when the big moments are on.
Yeah, well, this what stood out to me yesterday, Lord. I mean, clearly it was Lynch and it was Bolton with a little bit of support role from Revolt were the ones that were going to win the game. And if it wasn't for Charlie Cameron for Brisbane in the front half, I wasn't sure who was going to do it. So you just haven't been able to rely on those key targets forward of the ball. And clearly those big players stand up in big games like Lynch did yesterday.
And McStay, who they just seem to refuse to look at down back. I don't understand that. But anyway, the 5-year offer at Collingwood, where do you sit on this now?
Well, it's another example for Collingwood. It's a warning sign. You got to see McStay on the big stage, and it's the 8th time this year that he's been goalless out of 16 games. And this is what you are going to get, a player that's kicked 16 goals. Now, Hutchie, this is what happens. There is a contract con going on in the AFL. So the contract con is when you pay for a Mercedes but you get a Toyota and your value increases just because you are out of contract. There's some names there this year. Carl Amon, I'm hearing 5 years at $650. They're yet to realise that every third possession he hands it back to the opposition. Luke Jackson's the same. He's in really ordinary form. I understand why you would pay him, but you're paying more than what he's worth. De Goey's the same, and McStay. And there's the previous contract cons in the past. Rory Atkins, just because he's out of contract. Polak, Core last year.
You don't like the Brayshaw deal either.
I can't stand the Brayshaw deal, 6 years. I can't believe Melbourne have paid that. That's extraordinary. And then Tom Boyd to the Bulldogs is another example.
Incidentally, Matthew, Jake Niles reporting tonight that the Kilda board has just met and discussed again. Jordan De Goey still haven't green-lighted it, still haven't moved over the line on that one.
I like the Jackson one, though. I think he's going to be unbelievable for 15 years for the Dockers. Just on the Lions, they've choked. They've choked too many times in finals and big games, and I thought again it happened. So this is Berry to put them 31 points up with 9 minutes to go in the third quarter. Goal kicking is a real issue for them. This guy's got everything, bar nailing his shots, Hugh McCluggage, so that would have put them 11 points up in the last quarter. Mitch Robinson, that should have put them up by 5 points. That's a bad miss. Charlie Cameron misses this one. So this is mental for me, what they continually do. And then this is where the panic set in. Lachie Neale just hacking the ball on his boot. It's just one. There's a player in the centre corridor, but just threw it onto his boot. So this is why they'll have a pretty tough meeting, I would have thought, today in that review.
That's the pressure, isn't it, they didn't cope with. On the other side, Shea Bolton is just extraordinary. To watch him yesterday and what he is doing, I close-checked him a few weeks ago and said he's the cleanest player in the competition. But he's playing this role more uniquely than anyone since Dustin Martin has. And on the Sunday Footy Show 6 or 7 weeks, we posed the question, is he in the top 10 players in the competition? I think he's now number 1, really. Is there a better player in the competition than Shea Bolton at the moment for impact? Look at centre bounce, score involvements. He's had 69 shots on goal. 69 shots on goal for a small forward. What he's doing, for me, is probably the best player in the game right now. Yeah, it's an interesting debate and different people are on different sides. I love Toby Green as well, but not sure anyone is going as well as him right now.